Welcome, dear friends, to the wonderful world of philosophy. Now, don't be intimidated by that fancy word. Philosophy simply means love of wisdom in Greek. It's all about asking questions and thinking deeply about life, the universe, and everything. Imagine you're at a dinner party, and instead of small talk, you're diving into the big questions that have puzzled humans for millennia. That's philosophy. Philosophy isn't just for old men with beards stroking their chins. It's for everyone who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered, what's it all about? It's for the child who asks why, and the adult who still hasn't found a satisfactory answer. Philosophy is about curiosity, critical thinking, and not taking things for granted. It's about peeling back the layers of our assumptions and seeing what lies beneath. In this video, we'll be your tour guides through the main areas of philosophy. We'll explore how we know things, what makes actions right or wrong, the nature of reality itself, and how to think clearly. Don't worry, we won't be using big words or complex jargon. We'll keep things simple, fun, and relevant to your everyday life. After all, philosophy isn't meant to be locked away in ivory towers. It's meant to be lived. So, grab a cup of tea or coffee, if that's your preference, get comfortable, and prepare to embark on a journey of the mind. We'll be asking questions, challenging assumptions, and maybe even changing the way you see the world. Remember, in philosophy, the questions are often more important than the answers. So let's start questioning.
Let's dive into our first big area of philosophy, epistemology. Now that's a mouthful, isn't it? But don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Epistemology is simply the study of knowledge. It asks questions like, how do we know things? What counts as knowledge? Can we be certain about anything? It's like being a detective, but instead of solving crimes, you're solving the mystery of human understanding. Imagine you're looking at a red apple. You know it's red because you can see it, right? But how do you know your eyes aren't deceiving you? How do you know you're not dreaming or in a simulation? These might sound like far-fetched questions, but they're at the heart of epistemology. Philosophers have been grappling with these issues for centuries, trying to figure out what we can truly know and how we can know it. One famous thought experiment in epistemology is Descartes' evil demon scenario. Imagine an all-powerful evil demon who's deceiving you about everything. How can you be sure that anything you perceive is real? Descartes concluded that the only thing he could be certain of was his own existence. I think, therefore I am. This might seem a bit extreme, but it shows how epistemology pushes us to question even our most basic assumptions. But epistemology isn't just about doubt and skepticism. It also explores how we gain knowledge through experience, reason, and the scientific method. It asks whether we can trust our senses, our memories, or the testimony of others. In our age of fake news and information overload, these questions are more relevant than ever. Understanding epistemology can help us navigate the complex world of knowledge and information, making us better critical thinkers and more discerning consumers of information.
Now, let's turn our attention to ethics, the branch of philosophy that deals with morality. Ethics is all about figuring out what's right and wrong, good and bad. It's like being the referee in the game of life, trying to establish the rules of fair play. But unlike in sports, the rules in ethics aren't always clear-cut, and that's where things get interesting. Ethics asks questions like, is it ever okay to lie? What makes an action morally good or bad? Do we have obligations to others? And if so, what are they? These aren't just academic questions. They're issues we grapple with every day. Should you tell your friend if their partner is cheating on them? Is it wrong to eat meat if animals suffer? Should you return a wallet you found on the street? Ethics gives us tools to think through these dilemmas. One famous ethical thought experiment is the trolley problem. Imagine a runaway trolley heading towards 5 people tied to the tracks. You're standing next to a large stranger on a footbridge above the tracks. The only way to save the 5 people is to push the stranger off the bridge onto the tracks, where his body will stop the trolley. Would you do it? This scenario highlights the tension between two ethical principles, the idea that we shouldn't harm others, and the idea that we should act to bring about the best consequences. Ethics isn't just about individual actions, it also deals with big societal issues. What kind of economic system is most just? How should we balance individual rights with the common good? What do we owe to future generations in terms of environmental protection? By studying ethics, we can become more thoughtful about our own moral choices and better equipped to engage in debates about social and political issues. Remember, the goal isn't always to find definitive answers, but to think critically and compassionately about these complex issues.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're about to dive into the deep end of philosophy metaphysics. This branch of philosophy deals with the fundamental nature of reality. It asks questions like, what exists? What is the nature of time and space? Do we have free will? Is there a God? If these questions make your head spin, you're not alone. Metaphysics grapples with some of the most mind-bending concepts in philosophy. One of the big debates in metaphysics is between materialism and idealism. Materialists believe that physical matter is the fundamental substance in nature, and that everything, including consciousness, can be explained in terms of material interactions. Idealists, on the other hand, argue that reality is fundamentally mental or spiritual. It's like the age-old question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? A materialist might say yes, while an idealist might question whether the tree or the forest exists independently of perception. Another fascinating area of metaphysics is the philosophy of time. Is time a fundamental feature of the universe, or is it just a human construct? Does the past still exist? Is the future already determined? Some philosophers argue for eternalism, the view that past, present, and future all exist equally. Others defend presentism, the idea that only the present moment is real. These might seem like abstract questions, but they have profound implications for how we understand causality, free will, and the nature of existence itself. Metaphysics also explores questions of identity and personhood. What makes you you? If you gradually replace all the parts of a ship, is it still the same ship? This is known as the ship of Theseus paradox. Similarly, if your memories and personality changed completely, would you still be the same person? These questions become particularly relevant when we consider issues like personal identity over time, the ethics of artificial intelligence, or the possibility of uploading human consciousness to computers. Metaphysics might seem abstract, but it's deeply connected to how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe.
Section 5. Logic, the art of reasoning. Now let's turn our attention to logic, the backbone of philosophical thinking. Logic is all about reasoning, how to construct valid arguments, how to spot flaws in reasoning, and how to think clearly and consistently. It's like the grammar of thought, providing rules for how ideas should fit together. Don't worry, we won't be diving into symbolic logic or truth tables here. We'll keep things nice and simple. At its core, logic is about moving from premises to conclusions in a way that preserves truth. If your premises are true and your reasoning is valid, your conclusion should be true too. For example, all humans are mortal, premise 1. Socrates is a human, premise 2. Therefore, Socrates is mortal, conclusion. This is a valid argument. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Logic helps us identify these patterns of good reasoning and avoid fallacies, which are common errors in reasoning. One common fallacy is the ad hominem attack, where someone attacks the person making an argument rather than addressing the argument itself. For example, you can't trust John's views on climate change because he drives a gas-guzzling car. This is a fallacy because John's personal behavior doesn't necessarily affect the truth of his claims about climate change. Another fallacy is the slippery slope argument, where someone claims that a small first step will inevitably lead to a chain of related events. For example, if we allow same-sex marriage, next people will want to marry their pets. This ignores the possibility of drawing reasonable lines between different cases. Understanding logic can help us in many areas of life. It can make us better at analyzing arguments in politics and the media. It can help us make more rational decisions by clearly laying out the premises and conclusions. It can even improve our problem-solving skills by helping us think through issues step by step. Remember, the goal of logic isn't to win arguments, but to seek truth and understanding. By honing our logical skills, we can become clearer thinkers and more effective communicators.
Section 6. Philosophy in Everyday Life. Now, you might be thinking, this is all very interesting, but what does it have to do with my everyday life? Well, dear reader, the answer is everything. Philosophy isn't just for academics in ivory towers. It's a practical tool for navigating the complexities of life. Let's explore how these philosophical concepts can apply to your daily experiences. Take epistemology, for instance. In an age of fake news and information overload, understanding how we know things is crucial. When you're scrolling through social media or watching the news, epistemology can help you critically evaluate the information you're receiving. Are the sources reliable? What evidence is being presented? Are there alternative explanations? By applying epistemological thinking, you can become a more discerning consumer of information and less likely to be misled by false claims or propaganda. Ethics, too, is deeply relevant to our everyday lives. We face moral dilemmas all the time, often without realizing it. Should you tell a white lie to spare someone's feelings? Is it okay to call in sick to work when you're not really ill? Should you buy clothes from a company known for poor labor practices if they're much cheaper? Ethical thinking can help you navigate these situations more thoughtfully. It can also inform your broader life choices, like your career path or how you engage with your community. Even metaphysics and logic have practical applications. Metaphysical questions about the nature of reality and consciousness can inform how we approach issues like artificial intelligence, environmental ethics, or even our personal sense of purpose. Logic, meanwhile, is essential for clear thinking in all areas of life. Whether you're making a big decision, engaging in a debate, or trying to solve a problem at work, logical reasoning can help you analyze the situation more effectively and avoid common pitfalls in thinking.
Section 7. The Big Questions of Philosophy. Now that we've explored the main branches of philosophy, let's zoom out and look at some of the big questions that philosophers have grappled with throughout history. These are the kind of questions that might keep you up at night, the ones that don't have easy answers but are endlessly fascinating to ponder. Don't worry if they make your brain hurt a bit. That's just the sound of your mind expanding. One of the biggest questions in philosophy is, what is the meaning of life? Is there an inherent purpose to our existence, or do we create our own meaning? Some philosophers, like Jean-Paul Sartre, argued that life has no predetermined meaning and that we're condemned to be free. We must create our own purpose. Others, like Aristotle, believed that human beings have a specific nature and that living a good life means fulfilling our potential as rational social beings. What do you think? Does life have an inherent meaning, or do we create it ourselves? Another big question is, do we have free will, or are our actions determined by prior causes? This debate has raged for centuries and has implications for how we think about moral responsibility, legal systems, and the nature of consciousness. Some argue that in a universe governed by physical laws, true free will is an illusion. Others contend that there's room for free will even in a deterministic universe, or that quantum indeterminacy at the subatomic level allows for genuine freedom of choice. This question intersects with debates in neuroscience, physics, and even theology. A third major question is, what is the nature of reality? Is the world as we perceive it the real world, or is there a deeper reality behind appearances? Plato famously argued that the physical world is just a shadow of a higher realm of perfect forms. In a modern context, some philosophers and scientists have suggested that we might be living in a computer simulation. Others argue for various forms of idealism, materialism, or dualism. These questions might seem abstract, but they have profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe. Section 8. Famous philosophers and their ideas. Philosophy has a rich history spanning thousands of years, with countless thinkers contributing their ideas to the great conversation. Let's take a whirlwind tour of some famous philosophers and their key ideas. Remember, philosophy isn't about memorizing what these thinkers said, but about engaging with their ideas and continuing the dialogue they started. Let's start with Socrates, often considered the father of Western philosophy. Socrates famously claimed that the only thing he knew was that he knew nothing. He emphasized the importance of questioning assumptions and seeking wisdom through dialogue. His student Plato developed the theory of forms, arguing that there's a realm of perfect, unchanging ideas behind the physical world we perceive. Aristotle, in turn, focused more on the natural world, developing systems of logic, ethics, and metaphysics that influenced Western thought for centuries. Fast forward to the Enlightenment, and we encounter thinkers like René Descartes, who famously said, "I think, therefore I am." Descartes used radical doubt as a method to find a foundation for certain knowledge. Immanuel Kant argued that we can never know things as they are in themselves, only as they appear to us through the structures of our minds. He also developed an influential ethical theory based on the idea of universal moral duties. In more recent times, existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus grappled with questions of meaning and authenticity in a world without inherent purpose. Feminist philosophers like Simone de Beauvoir challenged traditional philosophical assumptions and explored the nature of gender and oppression. And philosophers of mind like Daniel Dennett have engaged with neuroscience and artificial intelligence to explore the nature of consciousness and free will. Section 9. Why philosophy matters today. As we wrap up our whirlwind tour of philosophy, you might be wondering, why does all this matter in the 21st century? With all our scientific and technological progress, haven't we moved beyond the need for philosophical speculation? Well, dear reader, I'd argue that philosophy is more important now than ever before. Let me tell you why. First, philosophy provides us with tools for critical thinking and clear reasoning. In an age of information overload and alternative facts, the ability to analyze arguments, spot logical fallacies, and think critically about complex issues is crucial. Philosophy teaches us to question assumptions, consider multiple perspectives, and reason carefully. These skills are invaluable in navigating the complexities of modern life, whether you're evaluating political claims, making important personal decisions, or grappling with ethical dilemmas at work.